My great-grandfather was here at the first Mass in 1854, so we have a family connection that goes right back to it. I love the building, I love the church, and I find it's one of the most spiritually uplifting buildings you can ever be in.
Some big churches perhaps overwhelm you to some measure, and you feel a little bit lost in them, even though they may have great beauty and majesty and so on. And they may be fine for a very large gathering of people, but as an individual goes in, they might just get a little bit lost. Whereas in St. Mary's, you don't get that feeling at all. It's like being in a little chapel in a certain sense. You're invited to pray.
At the present moment, I find it rather hard to pray in it, because every time I go into it, I see something that needs doing. So I have to approach it from a different atmosphere. The parish dates from 1852. The present church was started in 1882 and brought to the completed stage we see it now in 1900, except for certain fittings inside, such as the high altar and the side altars, which didn't arrive until the 1920s. The parish priest at the time, Father Aylward, who died in 1898, was the moving force behind it all. I do feel a lot of affinity with him because, as I said to Father Max, he did die of a stress-related complaint when he was only 49 years old. Because I think he thought, when he died in 1898, that this wouldn't be finished, because Australia and Melbourne in particular were in the middle of a great economic depression, and people in this area were actually starving to death. It was always impossible to maintain this church as it should have been maintained, and the Archbishop of the time, Thomas Joseph Carr, counselled against building such a huge church here, because he said, you will never be able to maintain it. And he was proved to be true. But having said that, the congregation of the time built it. We really don't know what possessed them to build such a masterpiece and such a monument to God, but they were possessed by something and they built it. Prior to the restoration, through no fault of anybody, it had somewhat mouldered away because there was no money to carry out the extensive renovations and restorations which were needed rather urgently. Externally, the most significant aspect of the deterioration was in the stonework, which had deteriorated to the extent that it was becoming dangerous and the whole building was fenced off. It should have really been closed, it was so dangerous.
The building was in exterior-wise, stonework-wise, in all kinds of strife. We would be running on average of about between 50% replacement of the brown sandstone to 100% in some locations. It has a lot of different types of clays in the stone, and the clays acting in tandem with the salts in the air, because you're right near the sea here, set up a deterioration cycle that has it exfoliating in its first stage in a lump about 20 mil thick, and it delaminates as a sheet. and pops off. Some of these sheets, they literally will come off in chunks that long, by that high, by that thick. It should be rather painful if it fell on you. We're getting a replacement stone from Bow Desert up in Queensland. It's a large deposit of brown sandstone up there. The sandstone is a better grade of sandstone than what has been used, i.e. the Barrable sandstone. It will last a lot longer than the Barrable, and it's a terrific match for the colour. When I walk around the outside of the church, or when I drive up in the morning, I get a sense of pride. I get a sense of, that's what the building looked like when it was new. That's how the building should read, because when you look at a Gothic building like this, they tell a story. And as they age and fall apart, it's harder to access the story that the architecture is telling. And so when I come in the morning, walk around, drive up, have a look in the morning light, the building's alive. And then you come around to the bit that's not done, and the story is hard to decipher. Some of the pieces have actually stretched me to accomplish them. For me, what stands out is the side doorway. We rebuilt the gable on the side door, and I carved a quatrefoil, and inset into the quatrefoil was some bulrushes in the symbol of water. The challenging parts of the works are mainly to bring it up to the standard of what was done before, because it's quite a high standard of stonemasonry. To bring it up to that, or better. That's our aim.